The blizzard howled through Bodie, California like the devil himself had descended upon the mining town, and Hannah Novak stood shivering on the train station platform wondering if she would die before nightfall. The snow came down so thick she could barely see the rough wooden buildings lining the muddy street, and the iron collar around her neck marked her as property, though the man who had claimed to own her had collapsed from consumption 3 miles back and now lay frozen somewhere along the tracks. It was January 1878, and Hannah had learned that winter in the Sierra Nevada showed no mercy to the desperate or the damned. The station master, a grizzled man named Polk, grabbed her arm and hauled her toward a group of men huddled near a barrel fire. "Got one more here," he shouted over the wind. "Girl came in on the freight car. Previous owner deceased. She is indentured. Papers say 5 more years owed. Who will take the debt?" Hannah wanted to protest, to scream that those papers were lies, that she had been tricked in San Francisco by a man who promised her honest work as a seamstress. But her lips were too numb from cold and her body too weak from 3 days without proper food. She swayed on her feet, her thin cotton dress doing nothing against the brutal wind, and watched through blurred vision as the men looked her over like cattle at auction. $50, someone called out. $75, another voice countered. The bidding continued, each number a nail in the coffin of her dignity, until a tall figure stepped forward from the shadows of the station house. He wore a heavy sheepskin coat and a wide-brimmed hat pulled low, his face largely hidden, but his voice carried authority when he spoke. $200, and I will pay it now in gold." The crowd went silent. That was more than 4 months' wages for most men in Bodie, more than anyone would pay for an indentured servant, especially one who looked half dead already. The station master's eyes lit with greed. "Sold to Jameson Yates," Polk declared, snatching the gold coins the tall man produced. "She is yours, legal and proper." Jameson moved toward Hannah, and she flinched instinctively, but his touch when it came was surprisingly gentle. He removed his own coat and wrapped it around her shoulders, the warmth of it making her gasp. "Can you walk?" he asked quietly. "I think so," Hannah managed through chattering teeth. "My horse is just there. Hold on to me." He guided her through the blinding snow to where a large bay gelding stood tied to a post, its back to the wind. Jameson lifted Hannah into the saddle as easily as if she weighed nothing, then swung up behind her. His arms came around her to grip the reins, and Hannah found herself pulled back against his chest, sheltered from the worst of the storm by his body. They rode through the white chaos of the blizzard, and Hannah drifted in and out of consciousness, aware only of the steady rhythm of the horse's gait and the solid warmth of the man behind her. She had no idea how long they traveled, minutes or hours, before Jameson finally drew the horse to a stop. "We are here," he said. "Can you stand?" Hannah tried, but her legs buckled the moment her feet touched the ground. Jameson caught her easily, then simply lifted her into his arms and carried her. Through the swirling snow, she glimpsed a cabin, larger than she expected, with smoke rising from a stone chimney. He kicked the door open and brought her inside, and the sudden warmth made her whole body start trembling violently. Jameson set her down in a chair near the fireplace, then moved quickly to build up the fire. The cabin was neat and well-appointed, with real glass windows, a proper stove, and furniture that looked handmade but sturdy. This was not the hovel of a poor prospector, but the home of a man who had found success in the goldfields and stayed to build something permanent. "I need to get you warm," Jameson said, kneeling in front of her. "Your hands and feet might have frostbite. May I check them?" Hannah nodded mutely. He removed her worn shoes, so thin they were practically useless, and examined her feet with careful hands. His touch was clinical but kind, and Hannah studied his face for the first time in the firelight. He was younger than she expected, perhaps 25 or 26, with strong features, dark hair, and eyes that held unexpected kindness. A scar ran along his left jaw, giving him a dangerous look that his gentle manner contradicted. "No frostbite," he said with relief. "You are lucky. I will make you something hot to drink." He stood and moved to the stove, and Hannah watched in confusion as he prepared tea, added honey and whiskey, and brought it to her wrapped in a cloth so she would not burn her hands. "Drink slowly," he instructed. "It will help." Hannah obeyed, the warmth spreading through her chest and belly, loosening the tight knot of fear that had lived there for months. "Why did you pay so much?" she finally asked. $200 is a fortune." Jameson settled into a chair across from her, his long legs stretched toward the fire. "Because no one should be sold like property," he said quietly. "And because I knew what would happen to you if one of the others had bought you. Most of the men in Bodie are decent enough, but those gathered at the station today were not among them." "But the papers," Hannah said. "They say I owe 5 years of service." "The papers are in the stove," Jameson replied. "I bought your debt and now I have forgiven it. You owe me nothing." Hannah stared at him, unable to comprehend such generosity. "I do not understand." "You do not need to understand. You just need to get well and warm." He stood again, moving to a chest against the wall. "I have some clothes that might fit you. They belong to my mother. She passed 2 years ago, but I kept her things. You are welcome to them." He pulled out a simple wool dress, stockings, and undergarments, all clean and well made. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. "Why are you being kind to me?" Jameson turned to look at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "Because I remember what it is like to have nothing and no one," he said. "Because I know what desperation looks like. And because someone once helped me when I needed it most, and I swore I would pass that kindness forward if I ever had the chance." He handed her the clothes and pointed to a curtained area in the corner. "You can change there. Take your time. I will make us some supper." Hannah retreated behind the curtain, her mind reeling. She stripped off the filthy cotton dress that had been her only garment for weeks and pulled on the clean clothes Jameson had given her. The wool dress was slightly large but warm, and the stockings felt like heaven against her abused feet. When she emerged, she found Jameson cooking at the stove, the smell of frying salt pork and potatoes making her stomach clench with hunger. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a table already set with 2 plates. "Food will be ready soon." They ate in silence at first, Hannah too focused on getting food into her empty stomach to make conversation. But as her immediate hunger faded and she could eat more slowly, she became aware of Jameson watching her with those kind, thoughtful eyes. "What is your name?" he asked. "Your real name, not what was on those papers." "Hannah Novak," she replied. "I am from San Francisco originally, though I was born in Ohio. My parents died of fever when I was 16, and I have been on my own since then." "How did you end up indentured?" Hannah's hands tightened on her fork. "I was working in a factory making shirts. The pay was terrible, and I could barely afford a room. A man came to the boarding house where I lived, said he was looking for skilled seamstresses to work in a shop in Sacramento. The pay he offered was 3 times what I was making. I should have known it was too good to be true. He sold you. He did. Put that collar on me and had papers drawn up claiming I had agreed to 7 years of service to pay for my transport and training. I never signed anything, but who was going to believe me over a white man with official-looking documents?" Her voice was bitter. "What happened to him?" "The man who brought you here. He got sick about a week ago. Consumption, I think. He kept getting worse, could barely breathe. When the train stopped to take on water, he went outside and just collapsed. The station master back there said he was dead. No one seemed to care much, and they just sold you to the next buyer. That is how it works, apparently. The debt transfers. Hannah met his eyes. Until you burn the papers. Yes. Jameson leaned back in his chair. You are free now, Hannah. Truly free. You can stay here as long as you need to recover your strength, and then I will help you get wherever you want to go. San Francisco, Sacramento, even back east if that is what you desire. What if I have nowhere to go? The question came out smaller than she intended. Then you stay here until you figure it out. I have the room and I could use help around the property come spring. If you wanted to work, I would pay you fair wages, same as I would pay any hired hand. But that is your choice, not an obligation. Hannah studied this strange, generous man across from her. Who are you, Jameson Yates? Really? A slight smile crossed his face, the first she had seen from him. I am just a man who got lucky in the goldfields and decided to build something lasting instead of drinking and gambling it all away like most miners do. I have a claim that still produces enough to live on, plus I raise horses. Good ones that sell well to the ranchers and the cavalry. I built this cabin myself, and I plan to build more, maybe even a real ranch someday. You live here alone, since my mother died, yes. She came out here with me from Texas when I was 20. We had nothing back there, just bad memories and worse prospects. California promised a fresh start. His expression darkened. She worked herself to exhaustion helping me establish this place. By the time we had enough money for her to rest, it was too late. The damage was done. I am sorry. So am I. Jameson stood and began clearing the dishes. You should rest. The storm will not let up before morning, and you have been through an ordeal. Take the bed. I will sleep out here by the fire. I cannot take your bed, Hannah protested. Yes, you can. It is decided. His tone brooked no argument, but it remained gentle. Go on now. Tomorrow we can talk more about the future. Hannah wanted to argue further, but exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. She barely made it to the bedroom before her legs gave out. The bed was larger than any she had ever slept in, with real sheets and thick quilts. She crawled under the covers, still wearing the wool dress, too tired to care about propriety, and was asleep within seconds. She woke once in the deep night, disoriented and panicked, the old fear that someone would come for her making her heart race. But then she heard the crackle of the fire in the next room and remembered where she was, remembered Jameson's kindness and the papers burning in the stove. Slowly, her heartbeat returned to normal, and she drifted back to sleep, this time without nightmares. Morning brought weak sunlight filtering through windows crusted with ice. Hannah emerged from the bedroom to find Jameson already up, coffee made and breakfast cooking. He looked up when she appeared and nodded a greeting. Storm passed, he said. Still cold as sin out there, but at least the snow stopped. How did you sleep? Better than I have in months, Hannah admitted. Thank you for the bed. You are welcome to it as long as you are here. He poured her coffee and gestured to the table. I need to check on the horses this morning, make sure they weathered the storm all right. You can come with me if you are feeling up to it, or stay here where it is warm. I would like to come, Hannah said. I want to see your horses. After breakfast, Jameson bundled her into a coat that had belonged to his mother and led her outside. The world was transformed into a winter wonderland. Snow piled high against the buildings and trees, the mountains rising in the distance like white giants. The cold was still brutal, but the sun on the snow was so bright it hurt to look at. They walked to a large barn behind the cabin, and when Jameson opened the door, Hannah gasped. Inside were a dozen horses, all of them beautiful, their coats gleaming in the dim light. Jameson moved among them with easy confidence, checking each one, running his hands over their legs and bodies, speaking to them in a low, soothing voice. "This is Cloud," he said, stopping beside a dappled gray mare. "She is my best breeding stock, smart as a whip and gentle as a lamb." He looked at Hannah. "Would you like to pet her?" Hannah approached cautiously. She had been around horses before, but never ones this fine. Cloud turned her head and regarded her with soft, intelligent eyes. Hannah reached out and stroked the mare's neck, and the horse whickered softly. "She likes you," Jameson said, and there was approval in his voice. They spent the next hour in the barn, Jameson showing Hannah each horse and explaining his breeding program. He spoke with passion about his animals, about his plans for the future, and Hannah found herself drawn in by his enthusiasm. Here was a man who knew what he wanted and was willing to work for it, who treated his animals with respect and care. It was so different from the cruel, grasping men she had known in San Francisco and on her terrible journey to Bodie. Over the next few days, they fell into a comfortable routine. Hannah helped with cooking and cleaning, not because she felt obligated, but because she wanted to contribute. Jameson worked with the horses, maintained his mining claim, and made sure the cabin stayed warm and well provisioned. They talked over meals, sharing stories of their pasts, their dreams for the future, and slowly, Hannah felt the hard shell of fear and distrust she had built around her heart begin to crack. Jameson was unlike any man she had ever known. He was strong and capable, but never used his strength to intimidate. He was clearly successful, but not boastful. And he treated her not as property or even as a servant, but as an equal, someone whose opinions mattered and whose comfort was important. A week after the blizzard, Hannah was in the kitchen making bread when Jameson came in from the barn, stamping snow from his boots. "Hannah, can you come here for a moment?" She joined him, wiping flour from her hands. "What is it?" He held out a leather pouch. "These are for you. Wages for the work you have done this week." Hannah stared at the pouch. "Jameson, no, I told you I want to help. You saved my life. I do not expect payment. And I told you that if you worked, I would pay you fair wages. This is not charity, Hannah. You have earned this." When she still hesitated, he took her hand and pressed the pouch into it. "Please, let me do this." Hannah opened the pouch and nearly dropped it. There were gold coins inside, more money than she had ever held at once. "This is too much." "It is exactly right. That is what I would pay any cook and housekeeper, and you do more than that. You have been helping with the horses too, and you are good with them." He smiled. "Besides, you will need money if you decide to leave come spring." The mention of leaving made something twist in Hannah's chest. Over the past week, she had been trying not to think about the future, trying not to acknowledge the growing warmth she felt whenever Jameson was near. She was free now, truly free, and she could go anywhere she wanted. But increasingly, the only place she wanted to be was right here. "What if I do not want to leave?" she asked quietly. Jameson's expression grew serious. "Then you stay. For as long as you want, this can be your home, Hannah." "Why?" she had to ask, had to understand. "Why are you being so good to me?" He was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "Because from the moment I saw you standing on that platform, freezing and afraid, something in my chest seized up. I knew I had to help you, had to keep you safe. I told myself it was just common decency, just doing the right thing. But this past week, having you here, talking with you, watching you bloom as the fear leaves your eyes, I realize it is more than that." Hannah's heart was pounding. "What is it then?" "I think I am falling in love with you," Jameson said simply. "I know it is too soon. I know you have been through hell and probably do not want to hear this from me, but I cannot lie. You make this cabin feel like a home instead of just a place I sleep. You make me want to build that ranch I have been dreaming about, make me want to create something beautiful and lasting. With you." Hannah could not breathe. No one had ever spoken to her like this, with such raw honesty and hope. "I do not know what to say." "You do not have to say anything. I just needed you to know. Whatever you decide about your future, whether you stay or go, I want you to know that you matter to me. You are not alone anymore." Before she could second-guess herself, Hannah stepped forward and kissed him. It was brief and chaste, just a press of lips, but it felt like jumping off a cliff and learning to fly. When she pulled back, Jameson was staring at her with wonder. "I do not want to leave," Hannah whispered. "I want to stay here with you. I want to help you build that ranch. I think I am falling in love with you too." Jameson's face broke into a smile so bright it transformed him. He pulled her into his arms, and Hannah went willingly, resting her head against his chest and listening to the thunder of his heartbeat. For the first time since her parents died, she felt safe. She felt home. The winter passed in a blur of happiness. Jameson courted Hannah properly despite them living under the same roof, bringing her small gifts from town, teaching her to ride the gentler horses, sharing his dreams and plans. They talked for hours by the fire, learning everything about each other. And every day Hannah fell more deeply in love with this good, kind man who had saved her from a fate worse than death. In March, when the snow began to melt and the first signs of spring appeared, Jameson rode into Bodie and returned with a small velvet box. That evening, he got down on one knee in front of the fireplace and asked Hannah to be his wife. She said yes, before he even finished the question. They were married in April by a traveling preacher who came through Bodie, with a few of Jameson's friends from town as witnesses. Hannah wore a dress she had sewn herself from fabric Jameson bought her, pale blue wool with lace at the collar, and she felt like a queen. Jameson wore his best suit and looked so handsome that Hannah's breath caught when she saw him waiting at the front of the small church. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, and when Jameson kissed her as his wife, Hannah felt tears of joy streaming down her face. This was real. This was forever. The nightmare was over, and her new life was beginning. Their wedding night was tender and sweet, Jameson gentle and patient with Hannah's nervousness. He made her feel cherished and desired, not used or owned, and when she fell asleep in his arms afterward, she knew she had made the right choice. This man would never hurt her, would always protect her, would build a life with her based on love and respect. Summer brought hard work and deep satisfaction. Jameson taught Hannah everything about horse breeding and training, and she proved to have a natural talent for it. The horses responded to her calm presence and gentle hands, and soon she was working alongside Jameson as a true partner in the business. They expanded the barn, built additional corrals, and bought 3 more mares to add to their breeding stock. Word spread about the quality of Jameson Yates horses, and buyers came from as far as Sacramento to purchase his animals. The money flowed in, and Jameson put it back into the property, buying more land, improving their facilities, planning for the future. In August, Hannah realized she was pregnant. She told Jameson over dinner, watching his face carefully for his reaction. For a moment he just stared at her, and then he let out a whoop of joy that made her laugh. He swept her up in his arms and spun her around, both of them laughing like children. "A baby," he kept saying. "We are going to have a baby." "Yes," Hannah confirmed, her own happiness overflowing. "In February, the doctor thinks." Jameson immediately became overprotective, insisting Hannah rest more and lift less, fussing over her meals and her comfort until she had to remind him that pregnancy was not an illness. But his concern came from love, and Hannah found she did not mind it too much. After a lifetime of no one caring whether she lived or died, having someone worry about her was actually rather wonderful. Autumn brought the first real test of their marriage. Jameson's mining claim, which had been producing steadily if not spectacularly, suddenly hit a rich vein. The gold came pouring out faster than he could process it, and he was faced with a choice: hire help and expand the mining operation, or stay small and focus on the horses. He and Hannah talked long into the night, weighing the options. More gold meant more money, but it also meant more time away from the horses and from each other. It meant hiring men they might not be able to trust, bringing outsiders into their peaceful life. "What do you want to do?" Hannah finally asked. Jameson looked at her, his hand resting on her gently rounded belly. "I want to seal up the mine," he said. "We have enough gold to be comfortable, enough to expand the ranch the way we have been planning. I do not want to spend my days underground when I could be up here with you and the horses and our baby. The ranch is my real dream, Hannah. The gold was just a means to an end." "Then seal it up," Hannah agreed. "We will build our future on the ranch." So Jameson closed the mine, taking out the last of the easily accessible gold and then collapsing the entrance. Some of the men in town called him crazy, saying he was walking away from a fortune. But Jameson did not care. He had everything he wanted right here. Winter came again, and Hannah grew large with their child. Jameson built a cradle from pine wood, sanding it smooth as silk and carving horses into the headboard. Hannah sewed tiny clothes and blankets, preparing for the arrival of their son or daughter. They spent the long winter evenings imagining what their child would look like, whose eyes they would have, whether they would love the horses as much as their parents did. In late February, on a night when the stars were bright and clear in the frozen sky, Hannah went into labor. Jameson rode through the darkness to fetch the doctor from Bodie, his heart in his throat with fear and excitement. The doctor, an older man named Stevens who had delivered half the babies in the territory, came back with him and took charge of the situation with calm efficiency. Hannah labored through the night and into the next day, and Jameson stayed by her side the whole time, holding her hand, wiping her forehead, murmuring encouragement. When their son finally came into the world with a lusty cry, Jameson wept openly. "A boy, doctor," Stevens announced, placing the squalling infant on Hannah's chest. "Strong and healthy. Congratulations." Hannah looked down at her son, at his red face and waving fists, and felt her heart expand until she thought it might burst. He was perfect. He was theirs. Jameson leaned over them both, his arm around Hannah's shoulders, and they marveled together at the miracle they had created. "What should we call him?" Hannah asked. Jameson thought for a moment. "Samuel," he said, "after my father. He was a good man, and I would like our son to carry his name." "Samuel Yates," Hannah said softly. "It is perfect." The next few months were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Samuel was a good baby, healthy and happy, and Hannah loved every moment of motherhood despite the sleepless nights and constant work. Jameson was a devoted father, walking the floor with Samuel when he fussed, changing nappies without complaint, staring at his son with such love and wonder that it made Hannah fall in love with him all over again. When spring arrived and they could take Samuel outside, Hannah would carry him to the barn and show him the horses. The baby seemed fascinated by the large animals, his eyes following their movements, and Jameson declared that he would be a natural horseman. Life settled into a new normal, busy and full but deeply satisfying. The ranch continued to prosper, their reputation growing. Jameson hired a young man named Thomas to help with the heavy work, and Hannah managed the household and helped with the horses when Samuel was napping or content to sit in his basket and watch. One evening in June, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset while Samuel slept inside, Hannah leaned her head on Jameson's shoulder. "Are you happy?" she asked. More than I ever thought possible, Jameson replied, kissing the top of her head. Are you? Yes. Hannah thought back to that terrible day on the train platform, to the cold and fear and desperation. It seemed like another lifetime, another person. Sometimes I cannot believe this is my life, that I have you and Samuel in this beautiful place. It feels like a dream. It is not a dream. It is real, and it is ours, and it will only get better. Jameson pulled her closer. I love you, Hannah. I loved you from that first moment, and I will love you until the day I die. I love you too, Hannah whispered. You gave me everything, a home, a family, a future. You built me a life when I had nothing. We built it together, Jameson corrected. You are not just along for the ride, Hannah. You are my partner in every way. This ranch, this life, it is as much yours as mine. Hannah smiled and took his hand, threading their fingers together. In the distance, the horses grazed peacefully in the fading light, and from inside came the soft sounds of their son sleeping. It was everything she had never dared to dream of, and it was real. The years flowed by like water, each one bringing new joys and challenges. Samuel grew into a bright, energetic boy who loved the horses as predicted and followed his father everywhere. When he was 3, Hannah found herself pregnant again, and this time she gave birth to a daughter they named Lucy. She had Hannah's dark hair and Jameson's gray eyes, and she was gentle and sweet where Samuel was bold and adventurous. The ranch expanded until it was one of the largest in the territory. They had 50 horses now, with a reputation that stretched from California to Nevada. Buyers came from all over the West to purchase Jameson Yates horses, and he could name his price. But success did not change him. He remained the same kind, hard-working man who had saved Hannah from the blizzard, the man who put family above profit and love above all else. When Samuel was 7 and Lucy was 4, Hannah suggested they build a bigger house. The cabin that had seemed so spacious when it was just the two of them was bursting at the seams with 2 active children. Jameson agreed immediately, and they began planning. The new house took a year to build, with Jameson and Thomas doing most of the work themselves. It was 2 stories, with 4 bedrooms, a proper parlor, and a kitchen big enough for Hannah to work comfortably. When it was finished, they had a party and invited everyone they knew. The house filled with laughter and music and good food. Standing in her new kitchen that night, watching Jameson dance with Lucy while Samuel showed off the model horses he had carved to a group of admiring adults, Hannah felt tears prick her eyes. This was beyond anything she had imagined that terrible day in the blizzard. She had a husband who loved her, children who thrived, a home that was truly hers, and work that she enjoyed. She had gone from having nothing to having everything. Jameson caught her eye across the room and smiled, and Hannah smiled back, a conversation passing between them without words. They had built this together, this beautiful life, and they would continue to build it together for years to come. As Samuel grew older, he took on more responsibility with the horses, proving to have inherited both his father's skill and his mother's patience. He was a natural horseman, able to gentle even the most skittish animals, and Jameson began teaching him about breeding lines and business management, preparing him to one day take over the ranch. Lucy was quieter than her brother, but no less determined. She loved to read and draw, and she had a particular talent for capturing the horses on paper. Hannah encouraged her daughter's artistic pursuits, and Jameson built Lucy a small studio in the barn where she could sketch the animals to her heart's content. When Hannah was 33 and Jameson was 35, they welcomed their 3rd child, another son they named Daniel. He was a surprise, coming 7 years after Lucy, but a welcome one. Samuel and Lucy doted on their baby brother, and the house filled with new energy and life. The years continued their steady march. Samuel turned 18 and took on full partnership in the ranch, working alongside his father as an equal. Lucy, at 15, was becoming a skilled artist, her drawings of horses sought after by buyers who wanted a portrait of their new purchase. Daniel was a happy, mischievous child who kept everyone on their toes. On a warm evening in May, when Hannah was 40 and had been married to Jameson for 18 years, they sat together on the porch of their big house, watching the sun set over the mountains just as they had done countless times before. The children were inside, Samuel helping Daniel with his reading while Lucy sketched by lamplight. "You remember the day we met?" Hannah asked. Jameson chuckled. "How could I forget? You looked like a drowned rat, half frozen and scared to death." "I was certain I was going to die that day," Hannah admitted. "And then you appeared and changed everything." "Best $200 I ever spent," Jameson said, and then more seriously, "best decision I ever made. You have given me a life beyond my wildest dreams, Hannah." 3 beautiful children, a successful ranch, a home filled with love. I am the luckiest man alive. "We are both lucky," Hannah corrected, leaning into his side. "We found each other when we both needed someone most. We built this life together, step by step." Jameson wrapped his arm around her. "I love you more now than I did the day we married, and I loved you fiercely even then. You are the strongest, kindest, most capable woman I have ever known. You took a terrible situation and turned it into triumph. You amaze me every day." Hannah felt tears slide down her cheeks, happy tears this time. "I love you too. You gave me everything when I had nothing. You saw me as a person when others saw only property. You built me a life, Jameson, and then you let me build it alongside you. I will never stop being grateful for that, and I will never stop loving you." They kissed as the sun dipped below the mountains, turning the sky to gold and purple, and it felt just as thrilling as their first kiss all those years ago. Some loves faded with time, growing routine and comfortable. But not theirs. Theirs had only deepened, becoming richer and stronger with every passing year. Inside the house, Samuel called out that dinner was ready, his voice carrying through the open windows. Lucy laughed at something Daniel said, the sound bright and clear. This was their symphony, the music of the life they had built together, and it was beautiful. As they stood to go inside, Jameson caught Hannah's hand and brought it to his lips. "To many more years together, my love." "To forever," Hannah agreed, and they walked into their home, into the warm light and laughter, into the life they had created from nothing but love and determination and hope. The seasons continued their endless cycle, and the ranch prospered beyond even Jameson's ambitious dreams. By the time Samuel was 25, he had married a sweet girl named Margaret from a neighboring ranch, and they welcomed Jameson and Hannah's first grandchild, a boy named Jacob. Watching Jameson hold his grandson for the first time, seeing the tears of joy on his face, Hannah felt her heart might burst with happiness. Lucy, at 22, had moved to San Francisco to study art seriously, but she came home often, bringing stories of the city and new sketches to show her family. She had never forgotten where she came from, never lost her love for the ranch and the horses and the wide open spaces. Daniel, at 15, was coming into his own, showing promise as both a horseman and a businessman. He had his father's head for numbers and his mother's way with people, a combination that served him well. One night, when Hannah and Jameson were alone again after years of a full house, they lay in bed talking quietly. "Can you believe we have been married 25 years?" Hannah marveled. "A quarter of a century." "Best 25 years of my life," Jameson said, pulling her close. "Though I admit, having the house to ourselves again does have its advantages." He kissed her neck and Hannah laughed. "Jameson Yates, you are incorrigible. Only for you, my love, only ever for you." They made love slowly and sweetly, taking their time, and afterward lay tangled together in the darkness. Hannah traced the familiar lines of Jameson's face, committing every detail to memory even though she knew them by heart. "What are you thinking?" Jameson asked. "I am thinking about that girl on the train platform, so afraid and alone. I wish I could go back and tell her that everything would be all right, that she would find love and happiness beyond her wildest imagination, that she would not just survive but thrive." "She was strong enough to survive it without knowing," Jameson said. "That is what amazes me. You endured that hell and still managed to open your heart to love, to trust again. That takes incredible courage." "You made it easy," Hannah said simply. "From that first moment you showed me kindness. You gave me no reason to fear you and every reason to trust you. You were patient when I was scared, generous when I had nothing, loving when I thought I was unlovable. How could I not fall in love with you?" "I felt the same way," Jameson admitted. "When I saw your strength, your resilience, the way you refused to be broken by what happened to you, I knew you were extraordinary. I knew I wanted to spend my life with you, building something beautiful together." They fell asleep in each other's arms, and Hannah dreamed of the future, of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, of the ranch continuing through the generations, a legacy of love and hard work. The years were kind to them. Hannah's hair turned gray, and lines appeared around Jameson's eyes, but they aged gracefully together, still working the ranch, still caring for the horses, still deeply in love. Lucy married a fellow artist and settled in San Francisco, but visited often with her husband and 2 children. Daniel took over more and more of the day-to-day operations of the ranch as Jameson slowed down, proving himself more than capable of continuing his father's legacy. On their 40th wedding anniversary, Samuel and Margaret threw them a party that seemed to include half the state of California. The house and barn were decorated with flowers and bunting. Tables groaned under the weight of food, and a band played music that echoed across the valley. Jameson and Hannah danced together as the sun set, surrounded by their children, grandchildren, friends, and neighbors, all of whom had come to celebrate the love story that had become legendary in the territory. "Who would have thought," Jameson murmured as they swayed to the music, "that a desperate bid to save a woman in a blizzard would lead to this?" "I would call it fate," Hannah replied, "but I think it was more than that. It was choice. You chose to help me, I chose to trust you, and we both chose to build this life together. Every day we have made the choice to love each other, to work together, to create something lasting. That is what makes it real." "You are right," Jameson agreed. "And I would make that choice again every time. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Hannah Yates. And you are the best thing that ever happened to me, Jameson Yates." They kissed to the cheers and applause of their family and friends, and the party continued late into the night, the ranch alive with joy and celebration. As Hannah stood on the porch later, watching the last guests depart under a sky full of stars, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. From the freezing train platform where she had been sold like cattle, to this moment of peace and prosperity and love. It had been 40 years, but she remembered every detail of that terrible day. And she remembered with equal clarity the moment Jameson stepped forward and changed her destiny. He came up behind her now and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything," Hannah said. "The past, the present, the future. How lucky we have been." "Luck had something to do with it," Jameson agreed. "But so did love and work and faith in each other. We built something extraordinary together, Hannah. Not just this ranch, but our family, our life. It is a legacy that will outlast us both." "I hope so," Hannah said softly. I hope Samuel and Margaret teach Jacob and his siblings what we taught them. That love matters more than money, that family is everything, that hard work and kindness will take you farther than any shortcut. They will, Jameson assured her. We raised good children and they are raising good children. The ranch is in excellent hands and so is our legacy. They stood together in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the night, the distant whinny of a horse, the rustle of wind through the pines. This land, this life, it was everything to them. It was the foundation they had built together, stone by stone, year by year, choice by choice. Years continued to pass, and Hannah and Jameson grew old together, their love never diminishing even as their bodies slowed. They spent their days sitting on the porch, watching their grandchildren play, offering advice when asked but mostly content to observe the life continuing around them. The ranch was in Daniel's capable hands now, with Samuel in an advisory role, and it continued to thrive and expand. When Hannah was 62, she fell ill with pneumonia. Jameson nursed her through it with the same tender care he had shown that first night in the blizzard, sitting by her bedside, holding her hand, refusing to leave her side. Hannah fought her way back to health, determined not to leave him, not yet. They still had more years ahead of them, more sunsets to watch, more grandchildren to hold. And they did have more years, good years full of quiet joy and deep contentment. They celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, surrounded by 3 generations of family. The ranch house packed with people who all owed their existence to that fateful meeting in a blizzard 50 years before. When Hannah was 75 and Jameson was 77, they both knew the end was approaching. Neither feared it, though. They had lived full, rich lives, had loved deeply and been deeply loved in return. They had built something lasting that would continue long after they were gone. On a warm summer evening, they sat together on their porch one last time. Hannah's hand was clasped in Jameson's, their fingers intertwined as they had been for over 5 decades. "You have any regrets?" Hannah asked. Jameson was quiet for a moment, considering. "Only that our time together has to end," he said finally. "But no regrets about the life we lived. We did it right, Hannah. We loved well." "Yes," Hannah agreed, a peaceful smile on her face. "We loved well." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. Somewhere in the barn, the horses nickered softly. Voices drifted from the house where their family was gathered for Sunday dinner, 3 generations under one roof, just like always. "I love you," Jameson said, his voice still strong despite his age. "I have loved you for 53 years, and I will love you for eternity beyond that." "I love you too," Hannah replied. "You saved my life that day in the blizzard, Jameson, but it was so much more than that. You gave me a reason to live, a purpose, a family. You built me a life when I had nothing, and then you shared every moment of it with me. Thank you for that. Thank you for choosing me." "Thank you for choosing me back," Jameson said. And they kissed gently, a kiss that held 53 years of love and partnership and devotion. They sat together watching the sunset, hands clasped, hearts beating in rhythm. 2 souls so perfectly matched that it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. And when the stars came out and their children came to fetch them for dinner, they rose together, walked into their home together, surrounded by the incredible legacy of love they had created together. Hannah Yates lived to be 82 years old, passing peacefully in her sleep with Jameson holding her hand. He followed her 6 months later, his heart simply unable to beat without hers. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, 2 simple headstones marking the resting place of a love that had transcended every obstacle, overcome every hardship, and built something beautiful that would endure for generations. The ranch continued to prosper under their descendants' care, the Yates name becoming synonymous with quality horses and strong family values. Every year on the anniversary of that fateful blizzard, the family would gather at Hannah and Jameson's graves and tell the story to the younger generation. They would speak of courage and kindness, of love found in the darkest moment, of two people who refused to let circumstances define them, and instead built a legacy that would outlast them both. And in the telling and retelling, Hannah and Jameson lived on, their love story inspiring each new generation to believe in the power of compassion, the strength of partnership, and the enduring nature of true love. What had begun with a desperate woman sold during a snowstorm, and a cowboy who chose kindness over profit, had blossomed into a dynasty, a testament to what two people could build when they faced the world together. The ranch that Jameson had dreamed of, and Hannah had helped build, stood for another 100 years, and then another, the land passing from parents to children to grandchildren, each generation adding their own chapter to the story, while never forgetting the foundation laid by Hannah and Jameson. Their names were spoken with reverence, their example held up as the gold standard of what marriage and partnership should be. And sometimes, on cold winter nights when the snow fell thick and the wind howled through the valley, ranch hands swore they could see two figures walking hand in hand through the barn, checking on the horses one last time before heading home together. Whether it was truth or legend did not matter. What mattered was that their love had become eternal, woven into the very fabric of the place they had built together. A reminder that from the darkest moments could come the brightest joy, and that love, true love, never really dies. It lives on in the children who carry their blood, in the land they tended with such care, in the horses whose bloodlines traced back to those first few mares Jameson had purchased all those years ago. It lives on in every kindness shown, every hand extended to help someone in need, every choice made to build rather than destroy, to love rather than hate. Hannah had been sold during a snowstorm at a remote train station, desperate and afraid, her future looking bleak and hopeless. Jameson had bought her and built her a life, yes, but it was so much more than that simple statement could convey. He had seen her humanity when others saw only property. He had offered her freedom when he could have claimed ownership. He had given her love when she expected only cruelty. And together, they had created something miraculous. Not just a successful ranch or a large family, but a legacy of love that rippled outward through time, touching lives that would never know their names but would benefit from the world they had helped create, one act of kindness at a time. Their story was proof that one person's choice to do good could change the entire trajectory of a life, of many lives. That a single moment of compassion in a blizzard could echo through the centuries. That love, real and true and hard-won, was the most powerful force in the world. And so the story ends where it began, in Bodie, California, in the Sierra Nevada mountains, where the winters are harsh and the summers are bright, where a man once paid $200 in gold to save a woman's life and got back something priceless in return, where a love story for the ages began with a simple choice to be kind and blossomed into forever. The ranch still stands, the horses still run in the pastures, and somewhere in the wind that whistles through the valley, you can almost hear Hannah's laugh and Jameson's answering chuckle. Two souls forever intertwined, forever home, forever loved. Their life together had been everything they dreamed and more, a testament to the transformative power of love, and proof that sometimes the best things in life come from the darkest beginnings. They had taken nothing and made it everything. They had taken fear and turned it to trust, desperation to hope, loneliness to family. They had taken a snowstorm and a train platform and two people with nothing but the will to survive, and they had built an empire of love that would never crumble, never fade, never be forgotten. And in the end, that was enough. That was everything. That was their legacy, their gift to the world, their proof that love conquers all. From a blizzard-swept platform to a peaceful grave on a hillside overlooking the land they loved, Hannah and Jameson Yates had lived a love story for the ages, and their memory would live on forever in the hearts of all who heard their tale.